Hey guys, it is Corbin. I have not spoken to you all in quite some time. Not spoken to you all as it pertains to the next video in the Odyssey of the Christian Mind series. And so that is what we are going to get into today. If you remember, now you guys know anytime I'm not looking at the camera, it is because I have all of my research and everything laid out here in front of me so that I can give it to you guys in a concise, easy to understand way. And I need to be able to see that so that I can relay the information to you all. So charge it to head and not to heart, because I cannot remember everything that I need to say, which is why I write it down so that I can read it. But moving right along, so far in the Odyssey of the Christian Mind series, we have explored the creation narrative, which takes place in Genesis 1 and 2, the Sodom account, which takes place in Genesis 19, 1 through 9, and the holiness code, which is in Leviticus 18, 22, and again mirrored in chapter 20, verse 13. So, now that we have covered the entire Old Testament, we are going to move into the New Testament and move into what people use from the New Testament to refute homosexuality. And if we're going to move right along, that means the next account that we are going to discuss is coming out of Romans chapter 1, verses 24 through 27. And this is Paul's letter to the church at Rome. Many people use this. This is like one of the heavy hitters in the New Testament that people use to refute homosexuality and to say that it is unnatural. And so we are going to unpack that today. It is a lot of information. I do have one bit of terminology that I'm going to give you all. But like I said, it's a lot of information, so just be prepared. Like I always say, the beauty of these videos is that if you miss something, you can rewind it and go back and catch it again. So I hope you guys enjoy. But before I begin, let me start by saying to those of you who are brand new to the channel, thank you so much for joining me here at Free the Me TV. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you get something out of these videos. But thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you who have been with us since the very beginning, which, you know, it's only been a few months. I only have a few videos up. But for those of you who have been with me since the very first video and just kind of stuck it out and followed the series and followed my other videos, thank you so much for sticking around. Your support means everything to me. It lets me know that I'm doing something to help somebody out there in the world. So thank you so much, and I love you very much. But moving right along, we're going to get into this narrative. So again, the narrative comes out of the book of Romans, the first chapter and the 24th through the 27th verse. I'm going to read that to you guys because it's a lot. So it says, therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. Their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural, and the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in their own persons the due penalty for their error. That is out of the Revised Standard Version. So let's just get right into this. In order for you to completely understand what Paul is writing about, we have to first look at this event as an entire event and not just isolate a single verse out of it. So each verse in this narrative gives us a closer picture into the overall situation as a whole. So if you look at verse 24, which reads, therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their heart to impurity. If we look at that, number one, the first thing that it points out there is lust. It starts with an image of lust. So I need you guys to remember that. Verse 25 says they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. So right there in verse 25, we are introduced to falsehood and idolatry, which is worshiping something other than God. Verse 26 says, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. So we are now introduced to dishonorable passions. And verse 26 and 27 continued, says that women exchanged natural relations for unnatural. The men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passions for one another. So if we look at verse 26 and 27, the end of it, if we look at that and kind of break it apart, you kind of have to flip it over like I always do. You have to look at the men first in order to clarify the passage. So it says the men likewise gave up natural relations with women. So if you focus on that, right, if you stop right there, what it says is the men gave up natural relations with women. This implies that these men were heterosexual by nature. So here's a little bit of terminology that I need to give to you guys, because the term that is translated as gave up is a Greek word, aphente, which means to leave behind, to forsake, to neglect, or to divorce. So essentially what this is saying is that these men divorced themselves from their own nature, which was heterosexuality, and were consumed with passion for one another, and women did likewise. So right there, right from jump, and once you break it down and you actually understand the term and understand the phrase gave up as it is originally translated, we can see that Paul is talking about heterosexual, straight individuals engaging in homosexual acts, and this is contrary to their nature. So then the question that comes up is, why would men do that? Why would they do that? It doesn't make much sense. So, like I always say in every one of these videos, context is absolutely everything. So if we look at this in its original context, this is a situation, like I said, each verse pulls up a different piece of this picture. So this is a situation of lust, falsehood, idolatry, and dishonorable passions. In this narrative alone, there are a number of men and a number of women. Both of these are plurals. So if there's a number of men and a number of women, this being a plural statement, that would most definitely imply that what is happening in this situation is an orgy. And everyone filled with lust and dishonorable passions, having sex with whoever, however they feel like. So once you can understand that this is a narrative that is speaking to orgies, to the act of being a part of an orgy specifically, you then have to ask, why in the world is Paul talking about orgies? So I decided to do a little bit of research. I decided to research what was going on at that time, research the land around the children of Israel. Well, this is the New Testament, so technically they wouldn't be considered the children of Israel anymore. But definitely pay attention to the land and the groups of people that were surrounding I'll continue to use the term children of Israel just to keep things on the same playing field. So if you pay attention to what was going on around the children of Israel at this time in Rome and all over the surrounding countries as a whole, what was happening is that the groups of people that were surrounding the children of Israel, they participated in a pagan practice known as sexual sacred orgies. And they did this because in that time they were surrounded by a group of people called the Canaanites. And there was the Canaanite deity Baal or Baal, and he was worshipped with sexual orgies on Mount Peor in Moab. Paul definitely would have been familiar with this. This was like a huge cultural thing at that time. There is absolutely no way Paul would not have been familiar with this. So, with this contextual understanding, I'm going to read the entire narrative again. And then I'm going to get into the little piece that I want to highlight that I need everybody to understand. So, knowing that Paul was speaking about multiple men and women betraying their natural passion, which was heterosexuality, and engaging in these homosexual relations as a result of these sacred sexual orgies, the story reads, "Therefore, God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen." For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. Their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural, and the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in their own persons the due penalty for their error. Once you read that, and once you take into context, once you take into consideration the entire situation as a whole, why Paul was writing about this, what was going on around the children of Israel at this time, it is very easy, quite easy to say that anyone who chooses to isolate the phrase natural relations in order to declare homosexual relations unnatural is literally just interjecting their own prejudice into this narrative and reading the narrative itself entirely outside of its context. So even if we were, let me just say this though, just to give you guys some perspective. Even if we were to isolate that phrase natural relations, we could only use it to condemn heterosexual individuals who go against their own heterosexual nature and engage in homosexual activity. So once we have looked at all of that, we've paid attention to all of that, it is easy, it is safe to say, it is quite all right to say, and there is no assumptions here. It's literally just reading it brass tacks for the facts that it is. It is easy to then say Paul was not condemning homosexuals in themselves, because homosexuality is what comes natural to those in the LGBT community. Not necessarily homosexuality, but whatever the sexual preference is to those in the LGBT community, it comes naturally to them. It's who they are. Paul was not condemning homosexuals themselves. Paul was condemning the sacred sexual orgies involving heterosexual individuals, completely denying their natural heterosexuality to engage in all types of sexual trysts with whomever, whenever, however, and for whatever reason they wanted to. And they did it as a form of worshiping Baal, and they were supposed to be worshiping God. So as a result of them worshiping Baal and not worshiping God, so as a result of them being idolaters, as a result of them ignoring God and choosing instead to worship Baal, they put aside their own natural self. They put aside what came naturally to them, heterosexuality. They put that aside and said, well, if we're going to worship Baal and we're going to serve Baal and not serve God and believe that Baal is the one true God, then we have to do it like the Canaanites do it. And so we're going to put aside what we know naturally and who we are naturally, and that's heterosexual, and we're going to adopt homosexual tendencies so that we can fit in with those who are worshiping Baal. That is what Paul was condemning. He was condemning people giving up their natural selves, their heterosexuality, to engage in homosexual activity simply for the purpose of worshiping Baal, and simply for the purpose of being a part of these sacred sexual orgies. So, I said it once, I will say it again. Anyone who chooses to isolate the phrase natural relations to then declare homosexual relations unnatural is putting their own biased opinions, their own biased thoughts into this phrase, into this narrative. They're putting it in the narrative and they're saying, oh, that means that all homosexuality is unnatural. And that is not what Paul was saying. If you read and if you study and if you learn things in its context, Paul was not saying that at all. So I just wanted to give you guys that. That was kind of a shorter lesson. Usually these lessons are about 20 minutes long. This one has been about 15. But I wanted to give you guys that so that you are familiar with what is actually being said in Romans chapter 1, verses 24 through 27. And that was Paul's letter to the church at Rome. The next video that we're going to do is a teeny tiny bit meatier, only because of what it covers. And that is coming out of 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. And that is Paul's letter to the church at Corinth. So I'm not going to give you guys a date for when that video is going to be posted. Who knows? It could be posted the same time as this one. But I do want you guys to look forward to that. We are almost done. We only have the letter to the church at Corinth and Paul's letter to young Timothy. Those are the only things that are left in the Odyssey of the Mind series. And then I'm going to move on into another series that, again, I have not given a name to yet. I haven't gotten it completely structured yet. But I hope you guys enjoyed that video, or this video rather. I hope you guys learned something from it, got something out of it. I hope you guys are able to take everything that I gave you tonight and learn from it and be able to present it to someone else and teach them something. But like I always say, guys, I am not the end-all be-all authority on this at all. I learn and study for myself, and I give you guys all of the information that I have so that you can learn and study for yourself, so that you can know it for yourself. Because like I said, don't ever take anything that anyone teaches you at face value. You have to learn it for yourself. You have to know it for yourself. Because if you don't know it for yourself, you're really not going to go anywhere. It's literally just going to be a he said, she said. You're going to take some hearsay from somebody and run with it, and that's never okay. So I just want you guys to, continue to like. If you enjoyed the video, continue to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Send me an email, send me a message on Facebook, whatever it is you have to do. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It wasn't as long as some of the other ones, so that should be pretty easy on you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I always say, I love you guys so very much. You are absolutely wonderful, and I can't wait to continue making videos and see what it is you guys want to hear and want to learn. All right, I love you guys so much, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day.